Yo, so today I'm going to be telling you guys why I think most producers should be making tutorials, and then also how I make mine and how you can make yours. So just to kind of preface this whole video, it's coming from the perspective of a person that prefers marketing towards producers and just overall making content that might improve producers rather than making content for beat sales and that kind of thing, marketing beats and placements, all that kind of stuff. So just like all my other talking videos, I have a piece of paper here. And it's broken down into two categories, of course, why and how. So I'm going to start off with why, just because that's obvious, makes sense. But just to start off, I think it is much easier to grow as a tutorial person rather than just like a type beat channel. Overall, tutorials just kind of have a better reach and they're more accessible and beneficial to watch rather than type beats in the terms of looking at it like you're a producer watching things. The only reason I would watch type beats is inspiration and reference for like a genre I haven't tried yet before, but tutorials cover both of those things and just kind of do it a little bit better because you are adding the big fact that you're giving away your knowledge and all the things that you've learned about a specific type of melody, beat, whatever you're making. So overall, just more beneficial to watch as a producer if you're into marketing towards producers. But then also in another sense, you could do like cook-up videos that might be entertaining for rappers as well, but I just prefer making more producer-oriented content that's supposed to inspire and improve other producers. So my little story with this, if you want to call it that, is about beginning of July last year, I made my first tutorial, and before that there was about a year of type beats. So within that year, it started off with 1 per week and then quickly moved up to 3 per week. And then there was a month where I kind of took a break, and then in June I did 1 every single day. And over that about year span, I averaged about 10 to 15 views per video. Of course, it might be a little different now because if people went back and looked at my first videos, but that's besides the point. Of course, I wasn't really focusing on like the whole running ads and ranking side of type beats, but still a year is a substantial amount of time, and I was marketing it on other places like BeatStars, Instagram. Like my thought process behind it was Instagram would have the most reach, which I don't really think is true anymore, and then that would go into the YouTube, which would have full beat, and then that would go into the beat store, which people would buy. And also over this time, I didn't sell any beats from YouTube. It was mostly just doing customs or exclusives that were like reaching out to them like just personally, not like posting a beat, oh I want that kind of thing. But then overall, after I posted that first tutorial, first views on that first day that I posted it was about 60, which is a 6% increase about. And that is really good, even though the numbers are really small. Going from 60 to 10 doesn't seem like that big of a jump, but it really is. And then after that, I would continue to post type beats here and there, not really focusing on like getting 3 a week, but there was weeks where I was posting 3 a week. And I think there was a couple where I missed a week and then post like 7 the next week. But then I would mix in tutorials, and I noticed that the tutorials were getting more reach. And then also I noticed that I liked marketing towards producers and helping them improve instead of just trying to get beat sales and placements and that kind of thing. Then I switched over to complete tutorials, which was a very good decision, only uploading tutorials, and then it's just been kind of a steady growth from there. But yeah, overall, I think it's a lot easier to like market yourself, I guess, brand yourself using tutorials rather than type beats. So my next point kind of correlates with that, and that is it helps the community as a whole. So basically you're giving away your information, your knowledge, all of these tips and tricks you've learned along the way of you making loops, beats, or whatever, and you're giving it away. So all these other people are going to learn and take little bits from your videos and incorporate it into their music, and that'll slightly improve it or just help them learn something or a shortcut that maybe they didn't know. And overall, it's just improving everyone just a little tiny bit that watches your videos. And that's really cool, and that's really what I like about it, is just knowing that my video could inspire someone to make a different kind of beat, or just inspire someone in general, getting them to start making beats or just help them just a little bit. Then my next point is it is a very antisocial way to network. Alright, so my next point is it is a great base for your brand. So I look at all these like different social media profiles, YouTube as just my brand, how I'm building myself up and marketing myself as a producer to seem more valuable, I guess. I don't really know a way to, but overall I made a kind of a picture, like an infographic if you want to call it that, which I'll put here once I edit the video. But basically it's a triangle, and then the base of it would represent your reach. So like this part is your reach, and then it kind of goes and then like that. I don't know how to explain it, but the bottom would be your YouTube. Then the next section would be the little bit less percentage of people that will like and comment, which will further grow the YouTube. And then the people that will reach out and network to you is just a little bit smaller. And then again, that'll grow back to the YouTube in terms of them posting your loop as a beat, and then you gaining from that. And then like the final tiers would be things like kits and placements, which just a little bit less of your reach might have opportunities in. That's personally just how I think about it, and it's helped me a little bit knowing that, yeah, I might not be seeing like that big of an increase on views or whatever, but I am reaching maybe different people each time, and those people might reach out and have different opportunities. And then my next 2 points are probably the ones that I personally value the most, which is one, you learn useful skills other than music production. So those 2 skills would pretty much be graphic design, 3 skills: graphic design, social media marketing, and then editing videos. Last time I checked, editing videos I think has an average hourly of about 29, which is a lot better than working minimum wage at some place. But overall, it might open up different opportunities for you in the future in terms of like making covers, editing other people's videos, and just making money in different ways that aren't YouTube or through music and that kind of stuff. And overall, just good skills to have and usually pretty fun. Editing, not that fun, but graphic design, so fun, and there's a lot of things you can learn from it. And overall, graphic design, like you can just learn a lot. It's very, very fun and just beneficial. Everyone needs cover arts, and some people don't have time to make covers, so it's just a nice skill to have. And then my last one, which is probably the biggest one, is it forces you to improve. If you're making videos consistently, personally I try to shoot for 3 a week. Recently it's been down to 2 a week, just because I'm working on all of these weird videos for when I'm not home and can't make videos. But every video you have to put out something that's slightly unique and has different tips and tricks. This forces you to be constantly evolving the way you produce, and also what sounds you use, all of this kind of different stuff. It just forces you to improve because you're giving away everything you know. So you have to, in that short time between videos, you have to learn new things. So overall, I've seen like a dramatic increase in the quality of my loops from when I started going hard at tutorials to now. Rather than when I was doing type beats to my first tutorial, that was a little bit of a slower growth, and there really wasn't that much of a difference in the way my stuff was sounding. But then once tutorials started, then there was a big difference. Like my loops now are not even comparable to that first tutorial. Was just vile. It was not good. The melody was really bad, but it still did reach a couple people. But then from that to where I am now is just crazy, and I can't believe that I've actually improved at something. And yeah, that's pretty much it that I have for the why section. But I just kind of also want to add that you'll see these people, like I think Tryfreeze is the one that I've been watching the most, that he has just blown up. His melodies are insane. He's gone from he has like 14K now, I think, and that's in the span of I think 6 months. I'm not really sure, but you do have a chance to do something like that where you just gain a bunch. Or you can go more my path, where I'm kind of more mediocre at melodies and do not as great of a job as explaining, where it's kind of more of like a slow growth. It's just a big old grind, basically. It's a lot of work, but it does pay off in the end. And another thing, I don't know if people are wondering this, but the money perspective, off of tutorials strictly, you barely make any money. Once you get monetized, it's not that much. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying like the CPM and all that kind of stuff that I get, but it's not good money. It's like you can't quit your job off of it, basically. The real way you would make money is if you were going really hard at kits, but then that also just kind of feels a little weird to me, making money off you guys that already watch my videos, and that's already really cool. All right, so now we can move on to the how section of the video, which was what I was really excited to make. But what you need to start off with, you need an editing program. I use DaVinci Resolve 17. It's free. It's not like a wacky demo or anything where some things are locked. There is some limitations, but it's nothing that will restrict you in editing tutorials. And then the other thing that you need that's not completely necessary is Photoshop. If you do end up taking the plunge on Adobe products, I know they can be ridiculously expensive. That's why I don't have Premiere and I choose to stay with the free Resolve. Please do not buy Photoshop exclusively. I think it's about $20 per month if you just get Photoshop, but there is a photography bundle that is $10 a month that you still get Photoshop in, and then some other photo editing products. But overall, just a better deal. I would tell you that because monthly subscriptions suck. All right, so then the next thing you need is OBS. I think everyone knows what OBS is. It's just free screen recording software. It's pretty good. You can also use Streamlabs. I just prefer OBS. I don't know why. It's just a little bit more simple. But the one thing I did want to break down was the mic settings, because I did have a lot of trouble at this when I was starting making tutorials. So one of the things is you want to apply these filters. It just makes it sound a little bit better. Of course, my mic isn't perfect, but it does sound a lot better than my first tutorials. So all these are just at stock settings. So you just want to put noise gate, noise suppression, compressor, gain, and then a limiter. And then I put it on -9 just because that's kind of where I like it to hit. It's a good volume for editing. But all the rest of the things are just no alterations, but it still does make it sound really good. Of course, you can play around with it and use external things to make you sound good, like sound treating your room, but it's not really that necessary. And then also another thing, I highly recommend recording in 1080p. It looks better on the phone. I feel like most YouTube viewers use phones. So just keep that in mind, and if you have a big old monitor like me, don't record in 1440p, just downscale it to 1080p and then you'll be just fine and it'll look good on a phone. And then the next two things are optional because you can do silent cookups or face camless cookups, but I highly recommend you get some kind of mic. My first mic was this one. This was my first mic. It's like 20 bucks on Amazon. It comes with this arm. It's a pretty decent deal. I mean, the mic's pretty bad, but it will work and put your voice into a video, which I think is very important because it is a lot easier to explain things vocally instead of using just text. And then the next thing would be a face cam. I use my phone. You don't need a fancy camera. I recommend you use the back-facing camera, but for me, it's really a lot easier to just be able to see myself. Even though the quality's not as good, it's easier to record this way. And of course, you don't need a face cam, but what does it matter? Everyone's a little bit ugly. So don't be afraid to show your face. It just makes it a little bit more personal and connected to you rather than some random guy or girl that's just making stuff and giving away their information. Then it's actually you in the video. And I'll put links to all this stuff in the description, like Photoshop, OBS, DaVinci Resolve, all that kind of stuff. Now we can move on to my editing tips. Unfortunately, I can't show you how I edit because that would explode my computer recording and editing at the same time, but I will put screenshots of my favorite like effects and transitions to use here. But then with the editing process, I assume that most of you guys like me don't have world-renowned editing supercomputers, so you might not be able to get smooth playback. A weird thing with Resolve is sometimes you have to alter a little bit of the settings. There's videos on this where people explain it better than me, and also just editing in general. There's people that make DaVinci Resolve videos for a living, so definitely listen to them and not me. But sometimes you won't get smooth playback or audio, so I highly recommend you edit the video the same day you record, so you notice where you mess up and also know what you said, so you can edit by the WAV file instead of editing, like just watching the video and being like, oh, that's bad, that's bad. Just remembering what you said and then being able to cut out that way. That might sound really weird, but it works very well. And then also another just general tip, this kind of falls more into recording, but leaving your space when you mess up. So I'm not gonna go like, yo, what's going on guys, and then immediately say, yo, what's going on guys after, because that's gonna be a pain to edit and get the little marker in there to cut. Very nice. So I always like to leave myself about a second, just so it's a little bit easier to slice and get better chops where you don't sound robotic and it sounds like your voice is naturally flowing. And then also with the editing, you kind of also have to choose what kind of tutorials you want to make. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but it'll be fine now. But basically, I would say the three main types are like silent cookups, studio cookups, which are a little bit different than silent cookups, not really that much, from scratch breakdown, and then from scratch breakdowns, which is kind of a weird topic. But overall, I think silent cookups pretty mid. I mean, it's I think that from scratch and then from scratch breakdowns are the best. Again, I'm going to mention Tryfreeze. I think his video format is fantastic. He breaks down a melody, but then also remakes a little bit of it in the video. You guys can go watch his videos. They're very entertaining and they're short and to the point, and they also show some from scratch elements, which I think is good. And then in terms of editing, what you want to expect with like time and the amount of work it is I usually estimate about 2.5 times whatever the initial recording is. So say if I have like an hour recording, it's gonna take me roughly 2.5 hours to edit. It's just a good measure if you're really going hard at editing and not just like splicing things together. And then also the difficulty depending on what kind of video you're making and based on how you have to edit it. So with silent cookups and studio cookups, I think it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of show what you're doing. Like there's no like special effects to it that much or anyway. I mean, if you get really cinematic with it, like Kyle Beats, then there's a little bit more that goes into it. But I don't think anyone has the time right now or like the camera quality to make that kind of content that's really good. So that really limits you to breakdowns from scratch, and then the from scratch breakdown kind of thing that I explained earlier. But overall, from scratch is the easiest to edit, longest to record. My from scratch recordings, if I do drums, I land at about an hour and 5 minutes, but they're very simple to edit because there's no extra effects, because it's entertaining already, because people like from scratch videos more, because people like from scratch videos just kind of generally. So you don't have to do that many extra effects with from scratch videos, so they're very easy to edit, very kind of difficult to film because it is you sitting down and making a loop, and if it's not good, you have to restart. A step above that in terms of editing toughness, what I would say would be breakdowns, because you have to add effects to make them a little bit more entertaining. So personally, I do that with the plugin scrolling across the screen showing the preset, background is blurred. That just kind of adds a little bit of a difference in the video and kind of keeps someone entertained a little bit longer, rather than just being like, oh, I used the rewind plug, and then it's just your face in the same position in the corner of the screen, and then the serum or whatever with the rewind plug open. It just makes it a little bit more entertaining. And you do have to focus on that with breakdowns a little bit more, and also making them short and snappy. No one's ever going to watch a 20-minute breakdown. I've done them in the past, and I just don't think they're... And then also with those breakdown videos, they're the easiest to record. You already have all the thoughts that you put into FL Studio in your head, so you can just explain them rapid fire. It's just very easy to film. And then finally, the one that is hardest to film and hardest to edit is probably the from scratch and the breakdown kind of combined. But the recording isn't that difficult. You just have to kind of remake what you did and explain it a little bit better. So it's not that harder than a from scratch tutorial. But the editing is where it gets hard, because you do want it to be short and snappy like a breakdown video, but you also want to have those from scratch elements where you're showing each individual like note click and where you're putting it, and not just skipping past random parts. So in that sense, it is very hard to edit. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for editing. That probably went on way too long, but now we can go into thumbnails, and I'm using Photoshop just because that's what I use. It's probably the best graphic design plugin. But yeah, I'll just go through my process through making a thumbnail for a video that's coming out tomorrow. All right, so now we're in Photoshop, and I have a 1080p canvas, I guess you would call it, open at 300 pixels per inch. You usually want to go a little bit higher if you're viewing it on a phone or something. At least that's what my dad told me. So trust my dad, so I assume that's true. And usually it looks pretty crisp, so I'm just going to go with it. But 1080p, 300 pixels per inch. And then you're going to need screenshots from your video, or just from the file in general. So I usually just save these to my desktop because I delete them after. It's the playlist with everything arranged. One is a closer zoom in on the piano roll. One is the whole piano roll. And then of course like the artist pictures, who it's like meant for or whatever. And then a screenshot of the sampler with the loop in it. I've been trying to stray away from things like full artist pictures and album covers, just because associating it with an artist is good enough, especially if they haven't dropped an album recently. You're kind of predicting what their next thing is. It's always good to kind of leave an album cover out of it, in my opinion. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I think about it. But I usually save about 2 to 3 pictures of the artist, so in my case it's Uzi, just in case one's a little blurry, and I have 2 here that Google said they were high def, so just gonna go with it. But to start off, how I make mine is I'll drag in my playlist picture and then put it on just a slight bit of an angle and just kind of center it so like the interesting parts are kind of filling up the whole space, and there isn't any like dead space. Like this dead space won't really look that great. So I'm gonna go something about there. Everything's kind of busy and you can see a lot of things. So then you can click that, go here to FX, adjustments, black and white. So I'll just make it black and white. You can go shift click on both of the layers, merge the layers, and then go up here to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I just use about here. I kind of play with it each time. And then from here you have this whole thing blurred. But if you go ahead and select the layer, do Control T so you can see the outline. you can see it's huge. So if you want to put a stroke on the outside of your thumbnail, you're gonna have to do what I do. So you go Control A, Alt J, and that'll just select the whole outside of the layer and then duplicate it to a new one. So you can just have this layer. So we can do Control T now. See, it's on the outside. And then on this, you can go ahead and double click to go into the layer style. And then stroke, I put it on 4 pixels. And then I don't do color, I do inner glow, and then I'll choose whatever kind of color theme I'm going with. So in this one, it's kind of like a more dark purple, but I'm gonna make it just a little bit brighter just so it kind of pops a little bit more. So that's pretty much good. And generally when I do my thumbnails, I try to stick to one color and just make it really simple and kind of trying to make it pop a little bit. So then after that, we can go back into the file explorer, and then I want to use this picture. So I'm just going to drag that in, and then we can see it's kind of grainy. We can put it kind of where we want it once we like enter it, because it does look a little bit different when you're transforming it. And overall, this does look pretty cool and crisp. So we can do Control T and kind of do like a little final positioning. So I think I want to do something about there, just so Uzi's face is like in there, but also like centered, I guess. And also you can get into trouble with using artists' pictures, but I haven't gotten into trouble yet, so I'm not too worried about it. But I am trying to move away from that gradually, but not move away from it too quick to where it doesn't look like my videos like right away. I just want to do a gradual change. So then next you go down here and click on this little circle with the box around it. This will do a layer mask. And then you're going to want to go over to brush and then select the soft round one so it has soft edges, and then put your opacity on 27% and also put the color to black. This will make it so you can fade out to transparent really easily. You can just kind of click around till you get something that looks spiffy. And then something that I do is just bring a little bit of that white border through, and also kind of like the background over here. Next, you want to go get your picture of the piano roll. So here's mine. And then you're just going to want to center it and kind of put it towards the lower. And then you can hold shift and drag it out and distort it just a little bit so it's a little bit longer, because I never take the right screen captures. But you just use snipping tool for all this stuff. Then you can do Control C, just rotate it a touch so it's a little bit more interesting. Go ahead back into the layer styles, hit it with a stroke, this time on 8 pixels. And then gonna go with the inner glow. We're gonna switch that to white though, just so there's a little bit of like a bubble kind of thing around it, and then turn this down just a little bit. It just makes it a little bit more bubbly and fun. And then of course a drop shadow, and put it on about 135. Then that just looks nice. It just pops a little bit more, especially with that drop shadow. But then you notice that it cuts off the white border that we did. So you're gonna go here, rasterize layer style, and then just go zoom in. It's a 4 pixel border, so it's really small, but just go like that. I'm just gonna go ahead and use the marquee tool, I believe it's called, to select all of the border. And then once you have that all selected, you can just delete it. And then if we zoom out, you can see that's all nice and white again and bright. So then after this, it's just kind of the process of just dragging all the images you have in. So I'm gonna do a little bit of like a zoom in thing on the MIDI. So I'll get to that in a second, but I'm just going to kind of position this on the opposite angle of the piano roll. So just something like that, move it behind the piano roll, do a little bit of a stroke on it, because you can see right there that it's not really a great screen capture. So putting the stroke on it will just make it look a little bit better. And again, I'm going to put that back to 4 pixels. So that looks pretty decent. And then we can do an outer glow that is the same color as probably a part of the background of the picture. So I'm just going to use the eyedropper and go with something like that. It'll just blend kind of nicely, and also throw some over here. But then something that I've been doing pretty recently is taking a more up close picture of the piano roll. So just like something you want to focus on. So like there's a triplet, I guess, but you can go ahead and make this a more manageable size. And then you want to go find a white circle PNG off of Google, and just make a folder called Photoshop textures, and then you can have all your stuff that you use pretty regularly in here. I'm just gonna say that I want this little part, I believe. So I'm gonna put the circle over it, turn the fill down a little bit just so I can see through and see what I'm selecting, and then go back and make some more adjustments. So I just want to get that little roll there. And then we can go ahead and click on the up close piano roll layer. Control click on the white circle layer, so it'll select everything inside of the white circle. But then you want to do Control Shift I to inverse the selection, so then it's everything outside of that white circle. And then you can go ahead and just erase all the rest of the stuff outside of it, so then it's just the circle. Now that we have all that stuff deleted, we can do Shift D again to Control D to deselect. And then we can delete that white circle and we'll just be left with the piano roll chop that is a little roll. And then we kind of got to choose where we want to position this. So I see that roll happening here. It's not the exact same one. This actually happened here, but I'm going to put it there just because then it would overlap with this. So I can select that layer, Control T, kind of roughly position it. Go like that. Again, put it on a bit of an angle so just so it looks a little bit more interesting. And go something about there. And then again, double click, throw a stroke on it. 4 pixels again, inner glow. But this time I want to use the color of the thumbnail, which is like a purple. And then I just want to alter this so it is very small, like that. And then turn this up so it like just kind of pops out a little bit. So something like that will look pretty nice, maybe a little bit less. Maybe something like that, just so it's kind of drastic. So it's kind of gentle, and then bring the size back just a touch. So that looks pretty nice. It like pops out a little bit on the thumbnail. And then finally, whatever DAW you're using, just go ahead and grab the logo for it. So in FL, there's this sliced logo that you can find on the internet. So you can just go ahead and use this. I place mine about here. Again, put it on a little bit of an angle. And then you got to move it behind all the other stuff, but not the sampler. And then just kind of reposition it because it might look a little weird now. So just go about there. That looks nice. And then again, throw the 4 pixel stroke on it. And then the drop shadow. And then just do the same process with cleaning up the white line. So now we have that all cleaned up again. Now this is pretty much done, but I always like to add something a little bit extra to my thumbnails, rather it be like stars up here or the artist's name in the back. I've done a couple times. So I'm going to go ahead and do the name in the back. So I want to go ahead and select just this layer, so it's just this active. Create a new layer, go to the text tool. I use this font. You can find it on DaFont. I don't really know. I'm just going to type Lil Uzi and then put it in white and just have it repeat a bunch of times. So I'm just going to skip past this because it's very tedious. All right, so now we have this. It just says Lil Uzi a bunch of times. Then we can go ahead, Control T, put on a little bit of an incline again, or angle. But make sure you like Uzi is visible because that's who the video is about, I guess. And then just go ahead and switch this to overlay. Let's do a nice little overlay in the back. And you notice that I don't really have to go over on this section because that's where his picture is. So if you can see it, put it there. It's a nice little fade. That's pretty much all I've been doing for thumbnails lately. And another thing I want to mention in the terms of thumbnails is making them sustainable. So personally, mine are not sustainable in the sense that you have to have good artist pictures. And with COVID, nothing new has come out. I assume that better ones will come out soon. But I think a good one to go off of is probably Holy's new style. It's more like effecty, so you don't need a great picture of the artist, but his are really interesting. And then VVS's are also very interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much else on thumbnails. I already touched on the OBS settings, and then other tips, tutorial length, I would say 10 to 15 minutes is the best length. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'll put like when I edit it, I'll put all like the screen captures up of editing stuff. But yeah, hopefully you learned something and are inspired to make tutorials. But yeah, have a great rest of your night. There's no way I'm going to be able to edit that video for tomorrow, so I'm going to have to do it in the morning. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. That's it. I'll play a random beat right now. Bye-bye.
Pineapple!